Hello and welcome to The Winning Mentality, the podcast getting the stories behind sporting success. I'm Charlie Bosco, and joining me today is one of Europe's most successful American football coaches, Shuan Fatah. It's been an extraordinary journey to where he is now, into his 8th season as head coach of the vastly successful SWARCO Raiders team in Innsbruck, Austria, and his 30th year of making a good living from the sport he loves. He grew up in a tough area of Berlin when the city was still divided, and he never dreamed of playing in the NFL. His goal was to pull on the jersey of his local team, the Berlin Adlers. He achieved that and won some big trophies with his boyhood club, but as time went by, coaching became increasingly appealing. So he made the long and difficult and at times uncertain transition into teaching the game rather than playing it. Shuan and I had a wide-ranging and utterly fascinating conversation covering how to create winning teams on and off the field, installing and maintaining a vision, effective communication, the importance of leaving your comfort zone, and what it takes to succeed in sport or any other endeavour. All in all, this was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever done because Shuan has so much experience and the eloquence in his second language, I should add, to describe what he's learned along the way and the passion to make you sit up and listen. This is a really special interview, so sit back, grab a notebook because you will want to make some notes, and enjoy. Shuan, welcome, and thank you for your time. It took a while to organise this, but we got here.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And we're sitting in your office overlooking the Austrian Alps. Life's not too bad. Head coach, professional head coach, one of the few in Europe. Firstly, how does a kid in Berlin get into football? Because, well, how many professional coaches are there in Europe?
It's hard to tell. I'm maybe half a dozen, maybe 10 that can, what's professional? I mean, can they make a living out of it? I mean, the question is they all get some money, but you got to make a living. And I think it's about 6-7 guys. I know they have a comfortable living. Doesn't mean job security, but they can live off it.
So how did you get started in it? I mean, was it as a kid?
Actually, yes. I actually played junior football in Berlin.
Is Berlin a bit of a football city on the quiet?
Yeah, it is. It is a football hotbed, or was for a long time. A lot of teams, a lot of talent, great talent came out of the city. First-round draft choices, NFL first-round draft choices came out of Berlin. So we are very proud about that. But lately they are struggling a little bit. There's one first division team that does very well, and then our old tradition team just went down to the third division. But in general, there's a lot of good football played in Berlin. And I actually came from boxing. I was boxing when I was 14. Saw an ad in the newspaper I think it's called, I don't know if it's still around, the Tip newspaper. It's called Tip. Has all the advertising for events, and there was actually an article about the Berlin Adler, the Eagles, and I just got hooked by the pictures and cheerleaders, and it was a very young team at that time. They were founded in 1979. I'm talking about 84 now, so they're not around for a long time. And in 1984, I just saw it, went once, didn't stay, came back the next year, 85. Actually got hooked, played junior football, and the rest is history.
I suppose that's quite different to most people's experiences now, because the NFL then, I guess, wasn't shown on TV in Europe. You weren't really aware of it.
No, I mean, there was no football on TV. Actually, we looked for little snippets on. For example, I was always fascinated by the series Dallas with Jack Hackman or whatever the guy was, the family from Dallas, the oil family, and there was always you could see Texas Stadium at the beginning. And I remember not being very interested in the series, but I was always watched the beginning because I wanted to see the stadium. That's how desperate we were at that time. There was AFN, American Forces Network. If you're lucky and you're in one part of Berlin, you could actually get a glimpse of it. I'm not saying sound or anything, but you can get to see it a little bit. So I was watching NFL football in 84, 85 on AFN, seeing the game on the left side in black and white and really bad picture, and have a 5 second delay sound from the radio, AFN radio. That's my Sunday football experience in the 80s.
So did you start out as a player then?
Yes.
And with dreams of the NFL, or not with dreams of anything? Just
I'm
just
not
wanted to
sure.
play.
I don't even think we thought about that because there was no. We knew about the NFL, but we didn't. There wasn't any. Nobody was chasing that because the game was so in infant stages. We just actually the NFL was the Berlin Adler at that time. For us that was the you wanted to get into the first team because they had 5,000 people in the stadium. They were an awesome bunch. We were actually really well known in Berlin. It was still a divided city. You still had the wall, and
Of course, this was 6 years before the wall came down.
yes. So really, you had the divided city. So West Berlin wasn't very big. So we were known, and you walked the city, people recognized you. That changed dramatically in 89, 90 when the wall came down, because then it became a big, huge city, and you kind of got swallowed as a sport.
And what was your playing career like? What was your position, actually?
Actually, I started out as a running back in juniors, played running back, wide receiver. I ended up being a defensive back as a corner in the first. I was very quick, skinny guy, but I was very fast, and I ended up being a defensive back in the first team when I moved up from juniors. My career only lasted 5-6 years. I had a serious knee injury in 1990. I tore my ACL, MCL, everything. My left knee was gone in the playoff game, and at that time I already won a couple of national championships, and I was already drifting away and thinking about coaching. As interesting as it is, I was a young lad, and I was already thinking about coaching, and I'd only played 5-6 years. And I tell people now, and they're like, "Oh, that's pretty early." I mean, you come back from that injury, and I tried to come back, but the fire wasn't there anymore. I was actually enjoying being on the sideline coaching guys, which I did parallel to playing my last year.
That's really interesting because a lot of people, I've heard soccer managers in particular say, nothing compares to playing. Nothing compares to playing. If managing, as they call it in soccer, or coaching in football, is a good second best, but nothing compares. It sounds like it's kind of the opposite for you. You coaching. Well, why is coaching more appealing in a way than playing?
Okay, I mean, I did enjoy playing the game. I mean, I played on a high level. I played in the Euro Bowl, in the early Euro Bowl tournaments as a player. I started for the Adler, so it was like I was very hooked on that game. But when you start winning early, and I was young, and I was getting into a team I was part of a team that was winning and was on their high. I mean, that was the high times for Berlin football. I just experienced the success so early that in age 21, I just had won everything. So I won all the national championships. I played Euro Bowls. There was nothing to gain anymore. So I actually drifted away, and I got into more the tactical part of the game. We had very interesting coaches at that time. My coach was Billy Brooks, former Oklahoma Sooner, first round draft choice. I mean, played for the Chargers. I mean, we had some really, really good coaches in Berlin. We were very lucky at that time to have some very experienced guys coming in. So I tasted. I think it would have been different if it's just some army guy and he's giving me his old high school 1960 stuff. But we got guys that actually brought stuff from college that was pretty actually new, and I think that kind of got me hooked because it opened up a totally new world. But I think playing is awesome, and I enjoyed it. And I'm not sure if I think coaching is a so totally different thing. What both have in common is it keeps you with the game. I wouldn't even make it it's better than the other. I don't think that's the way to approach it. It's totally different, but it keeps you with the game. I mean, the feelings are very similar before game, and I think that's kind of what got me hooked. But I enjoyed playing a lot, and it's a fantastic game to be. If you're a good athlete and you can handle the stress, the pounding, I think it's a fun job and fun sport to do. And if you're a guy that likes tactical parts of it, then I mean you can spend hours and hours on football. There's so many books out there. I have a library at home, and I just scratching the surface. So if you're into that stuff, studying a game, becoming an expert, it's there. You can spend 20, 30 years on it and still not know half of it. So it's really, really, that's what it is. It's two different aspects, but I think I enjoyed both very, very much.
I actually remember seeing an interview with John Madden, and he went to a small seminar held by Vince Lombardi, and they spent 4 hours talking about one play. And Vince Lombardi said, right, go get some lunch, and when you come back, we'll finish. And they spent another 4 hours talking about this play. And John Madden said before he went to this seminar, he thought he was pretty hot stuff. He thought he really knew the game. And when he'd spent 8 hours listening to Vince Lombardi talk about one play, he kind of realised that he was still a student of the game. But football can seem very complicated to the outsider. Do you have a defining philosophy or an outlook on the game? Is it simpler than people think, or do you just find every day you come into this office, you're just learning?
Both. I think for me, football is a very honest game because you either can block better, you can catch better, and you can run better, or whatever. You execute better, then you should be more on the winning side, especially if it comes down to athletes. There's a rule in football, it's not the X and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. That's what we say. It means that the X and O's is considered the playbook. And it doesn't matter what you play. If you have the better athletes, you should win all the time. A good coach told me once, you got the best athletes, you got to win. You are even with the other guy, you better do your homework. If you are behind athletic-wise, you can pray. That's how football is. It is honest. It tells you if you have the best athletes, you should win the game because it doesn't matter what you play in, what scheme. I think it's very overrated. Coaching is very overrated, especially in the media where they talk about gurus and offensive gurus and all. I think if you collect a good group of people that can buy into what you're doing, you're going to win more than you lose.
Do you think then the key is getting the right people in the room ahead of, the coach's role? And how much do you feel a coach can add to a football team? What a percentage are we talking? The right or the wrong coach makes a 10% difference, or is it just about getting the right people in the room and getting the culture right?
Yeah, the biggest thing is to bring a program. A coach is very, very important. It's like for me, that's like a manager, an executive. You have to have a vision. You have to bring it in, and you got to be physically and mentally and intellectually. You got to be able to transport it to your employees, or your team, and that's where it's going to be the difference. There's a lot of people that know a lot of football out there, but they can't teach it. They can't bring it over. They can't transport it to the players. They can't. And when I'm talking about bringing a program, I'm talking about igniting the fire in the management, in the president. And it's not about the players only. If I go somewhere, I put all my stuff on top of. I kind of, I color the whole program in my color. I take it over. That's my approach. So whatever we do philosophically, is everything is going to be ingrained with the management too, with the fan base. It all gets transported to them. But I think the biggest difference as a coach makes is installing the how to, the know-how, the way you want to have your program look at the end of the day, and assemble a good group of athletes. Obviously you recruit, you try to get some good players in, and my experience is the good coaches, they're just like magnets. They get whatever they want. Look at Nick Saban, look at guys in the U.S. There's a big reason why he gets a lot of people, because he is the way he is. He knows what he's doing, and you hardly have him in the headlines because of some bullshit going on. He just knows what he's doing, and it's nothing different here. You have to have a plan, have to be able to install it, have to ignite the fire with people that want to be part of it. You got to motivate them, and then you're good. The X and O's, like I said, overrated.
Yeah, that's quite surprising because as a fan of football, albeit a very amateur one, and particularly the Denver Broncos, who had a big win at the weekend, come back against the Chargers, had to get that in. it can look, and certainly as you say, the media sometimes portray it, that it's almost a battle of the coaches and they've got their big sheets with the plays and they're telling the quarterback what to run. And I'm quite surprised, but also quite happy to hear you say that that's maybe not the key, and it's the role of the coach is creating the culture and getting everyone moving in the same direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just mentioned those play sheets. Do you really think there's one head coach in the NFL that doesn't know X and O's? That they all know the
That's a
game.
given.
Exactly. But the best ones are the best communicators. Sean McVay at the Rams, I listen to him a lot. I follow him a lot. He's the youngest head coach in the NFL. He's a great communicator. He just knows how to address the kids. And then you have those guys that they probably know twice as much as McVay. Just because they've been around longer, they're 60 years old, they're taking over a team, and they are not successful. And next to it, not maybe having the same talent, but you talk about the NFL. I mean, if there's a league that makes a living out of parity, out of having the same, you know, the worst team drafts first. I mean, there's no team that doesn't have athletes or difference makers. I mean, there's some mismanagements going on. So yeah, sometimes you have a team that is athletically and talent-wise behind, but never like in like you would assume as a fan. There's a coach who knows how to communicate, get the vision installed, and it's just much more likable for the kids. I don't know. I miss another word for it. I mean, it's a young men's sport, and if you can communicate and relate to the young people, you have a chance. McVay is also a very intelligent and very good football coach, X and O's wise, in my opinion. So he has both of it. But first of all, my first impression was he's a great communicator. You watch his interviews. I mean, there's a lot of those guys around. I mean, there's a reason why Chicago is pretty good. With Nagy, who was a long-time assistant coach, goes there. It's a great communicator. He just knows how to do it. I mean, he takes the team over. Yeah, he had a couple good signings, Khalil Mack and all. But honestly, Mitchell Trubisky is a new guy, quarterback. Yeah, and he wins now. And they were struggling for years. You know, what's the difference? Communication, vision, following your vision and installing it, and just make people excited in the organization. That's the biggest thing.
Well, this is a question, the answer to which is probably a book. But how do you, in fact, you don't need to be brief. Talk for as long as you want. But how do you create and maintain a culture? Do you go for inspirational posters on the wall and big speeches? I've seen some of your speeches from your days at the Berlin Adlers, which are on YouTube.
Yeah.
But how do you go about creating a culture?
Yeah, first of all, you have to. There will be always a point in your coaching career where you have to sit back and really think about, what am I doing here? What is my philosophy? Because when you start as a young coach, sometimes it's just like a race, and you don't have the time to take a deep breath. You're 10 years into it. You're pretty successful, but you don't really have a plan. That happens to a lot of people. One example is Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks, who said in his book, he said age 46, he started to take a step back and actually installed this win the day, whatever he has there, that program. That was late in his career. He was just doing the rat race for years, and the same is happening here. So you have to step back, create a plan, and obviously you're influenced by people that you met over your career, and I always tell young coaches, take a winter and just sit down and write down what is it? What makes you different than other guys? What is your have a plan? We have a big poster here, and it's a plan. It's called Our Plan, How We Win, and there's 7 bulletin points, and it starts with togetherness, toughness. I mean, and then you have to think about, what is competition. Is that a part of what you want to install or not? I mean, nobody helps you. You need to find your own way, and it's all copycat anyways. I mean, I got this from a very good football coach, Peter Vaz, who used the plan I've just talked about. it's really, I transferred it over to my football. It's from him. Actually, it's a Lou Holtz thing from Notre Dame. Actually, so that plan I was talking about, the 7 bullet points, won a lot of championships. And but again, I was raised in it. When I was in NFL Europe, Peter Voss brought it in. I coached for 4 or 5 years with him, and it just was, I was hooked on it. I just started to believe, and now I'm a young disciple taking it to the next level, and that's how football is. It's old guys giving down the message, and if it appeals to you, you carry it over. I changed it around a little bit. Some things are not up to date anymore. But that's how you do it, and then you have your plan, and you maintain it by you almost have to put blinders on, because nowadays in football and forever football, the critics are everywhere. You have to be very steady in your approach to it. You can't be like like a paper in the wind. You have to stick with the idea of what you want to do. You spend years on developing it. Why would you change in one winter just because somebody criticized you, or you didn't win the championship, or you had a losing season? You're not defined by that. You're defined by how are your players developing? How is the program? Is it growing? Is there some stability? Are you creating roots? It's like a tree. It takes forever to get those roots going, and then no wind can knock you over. I mean, this just takes time, and people don't want to invest that time. I see that many times. I see young teams coming up, have sudden money, a lot of budget, good for 3-4 years, never established their roots, never had a plan, and just they come and go. But then you have those dinosaurs, those teams that are around forever. They have very strong roots, like Düsseldorf Panthers, when I'm talking in European terms, Berlin Adler, there's Cologne Crocodiles, there's Munich Cowboys. I mean, there's teams that are around forever. I mean, Munich Cowboys is a team I think were founded in the 70s. I mean, and those are still around, and that tells you they have some roots, they have some history, and they cherish that.
Because I read, correct me if I'm wrong, that you change your coaching manual every winter pretty fundamentally. How do you strike the balance between changing so that you're not predictable and people don't know how to beat you, and keeping your culture?
Yeah, I mean, the coaching manual, I don't know, I think you're referring to the coach's manual I have.
Like the X and O's?
Or the playbook. You mean the playbook? The manual we have, there's different books. The manual is actually that I transport my message to the coaching staff. That doesn't change a lot. This is.
But that's like a philosophical thing,
exactly,
or is that how we want to play, or is that how we want to be?
No, that's the philosophical, but it goes over to that too. I mean, there's a way how we approach the game, how we play. It doesn't mean the plays. It means how are we going to do things on the field. How do we coach kids? How we responding to adversity? How we do respond to press critics? I mean, this is all covered in my book for the coaches. They get it every year. But then you always also have to be very careful not to be too. I mean, you tweak a playbook in the winter. You'd never really change much because there's things you believe in, and like I said, I always been a guy. I change very slowly. If you beat me and I get constantly beat, obviously I'm very, very good in adapting, and otherwise you can't be on top for a long time, even in Europe. But you have to be able to adapt. But when you're doing everything all right, and you're not getting beat because of your X and O's, you're getting beat because of lesser talent. Other things you can't control because you can't get the best players here into Tirol, then you can't question your whole approach. That's very important. That means, stay the course. It's almost like in the stock market. It falls a little bit. Don't sell it. Keep it. I mean, it's a long process, and that's kind of how I compare it most of the time. You can't be panicking at all. You gotta have a lot of self-belief. You gotta be really self-confident, and and that comes back to your plan. Establish it, and if you worked on it and really, really went back and sat down and thought about it, you're not going to fall very easy for stuff. You're going to stay the course, and I think that's the secret in football. Continually have hire a good. If you find a good quarterback, stick with him as long as you can. You have a good assistant coach, stick with him. You got a bad one, get rid of him. I mean, this is the stuff I learned from good old coaches.
But how do you avoid complacency? Say you've got your quarterback, you've got your franchise quarterback, you've got your coaches, you're really settled. I'm trying to think of a team like, say, the Patriots. They've had their quarterback and their coach, and most of the coaching staff have been there a very long time. And you guys are pretty settled here. You've been here since, 2011?
Yeah, I actually signed a contract October 2010.
Well, yeah, so 8 years now. How do you avoid the complacency and keep it growing? Because I guess the old adage, if you're not going forward, you're standing still, or you know what I'm getting at.
Yes, it is tough because, for example, we reach the national championship game every year since I'm here. I mean, we're always in the championship game, and it is very easy to get complacent. It's very easy to take a deep exhale and relax, and that's one of our things we're talking about all the time. Every time the season starts, we say we inhale and we don't exhale before the season is over. I do think there's some things you can do as a coach. I mean, I was very fortunate. I had some really good, cool coaches in my career, and one of the head coaches I worked for was Rick Lance, who's a former Marine in the U.S. Army, and he's a very, very experienced coach. Was actually, invited by the New England Patriots. He knows Belichick Senior. I mean, he's a very good football coach, one of the best I ever coached for. And he said you got to keep your troops on the heels. He gave me a book before he left, Tactics of the Navy SEALs. It's a nice book where they really talk about how you keep your guys on the heels, how you create situations where they are uncomfortable, even though you are in great shape, and that's kind of what we do too. I mean, there's ways of keeping the people on the edge, and he did that in 2004 in Berlin. We had I was with Berlin Thunder in the NFL Europe, and we were 9-1, and he made the guys run sprints, became real pissy. And it almost started, and it almost became a mutiny. I mean, you had almost a revolt going on, a 9-1 team leading the whole thing, and it was all fabricated. He did it. He was just creating miscomfort, miserable practice, him being really bad and tough on the guys. And I was standing there. I remember us and the assistant were standing there. We couldn't believe what just happened. And we're rolling. And he just created a tough situation where they had to get through. We ended up winning the World Bowl. We won everything, and I think I still credit this to the situation we had there. And I'm not joking. I mean, it ended with a guy standing in front of his desk, and he had the flight ticket in his hand. You can go home to the U.S. if you want to, or you keep going grinding through this. So that's how far. And we're talking about the leader of the team being on the edge of being sent home in a 9-1 team rolling to a championship. But that's kind of what you do, and he was very much into that. And I learned from him to maybe not to that extreme, but I learned to create situations, make different things different in practice, create some team activity stuff. But you're right, it is challenging.
So you've got to make people uncomfortable.
Yes, you got to get them out of out of their comfort zone. And it's like in regular life. You leave your comfort zone. I think you grow as a person, but you also have to beat the innere Schweinehund. You got to beat you got to get out of the comfort zone, and you got to beat the odds. You got to get out of your everyday thing, and that not everybody can do that. Not everybody is made for that. My experience is when I leave my comfort zone, which is football, if I leave it and go somewhere else, I grow. I just remember I just went home to my father's homeland, Kurdistan, in 2014, and I came back a changed man just because I wasn't there I was there as a baby before, and I just saw how it is over there, and it just changed. Or even you get into the extreme situations in football, championship game. good coach on the other side, well-coached team on the other side, you are pushed to your limits, and you got to leave your comfort zone. The regular stuff that works may not work anymore. Are you prepared? And those things make you grow.
But how do you keep yourself going? Because you said you had vast success as a player, and it sounded like you kind of lost the hunger a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't seem to be happening as a coach. You are
Yeah.
in charge of one of the biggest football operations in Europe. You're vastly successful. You're one of the few people that can make a living as long-term as coaching can ever be. I mean, a coach's job is never 100%.
It's never safe.
No, I don't want to make you too uncomfortable. But how do you keep your hunger to keep coming into this office every day, week in, week out, and get better and improve this team, which is already really at the top of its game and has been since you arrived?
I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes back to my youth, because I'm, like you mentioned before, I'm an inner city kid from Berlin. I grew up in Neukölln, which is one of the bad parts of Berlin. And my story could have went anywhere. I have friends in jail. I have friends that went the wrong way, and it sounds cliche, but it is. I mean, my life could have went anyway, and I remember I made some decisions where especially football helped me doing that. A little bit boxing, but football helped me because when my buddies went to do the bad thing, I actually had practice. So that kind of helped me, and I got steered the right direction, and it's luck. I mean, don't kid yourself. The game just got me so hooked that I remember going, when they went right, I went left and took the train to the practice field, and I came back and they busted one of my guys, robbing somebody. I mean, this stuff honestly happened, and I think that kept me going. I mean, I just think that since then I was just so hooked on the game that I was just saw it as an escape. And as funny as it is, now I'm a father. I got 3 kids. I'm married, and I still kind of I think I'm a little bit afraid of losing what I got now, which I gained over the last 30 years, because I'm doing this almost for 30 years. I still and I know it's a bad motivation, but it's a very real motivation. If you have existential threats, I mean, I'm not making millions here. It's not like I'm in the NFL. I fulfill my 1-year contract and I made 3 million. I have financial stress. I do have existential scares, and it is maybe that. It's also really plain. I mean, it's you don't want to lose. You don't want. I'm a winner. I was always very competitive. I don't know where it stems from, but even when I was boxing, when I was doing soccer, I hated losing. I cried, and I was 15 years old, 14 years old, and I cried if I lost. I just couldn't take it. Up until today, it actually physically hurts me to lose. I lose a big game, I suffer. And you can ask a lot of coaches and players. It is the same with them. Outsiders don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not playing, but I do physically suffer. We have a 24-hour rule that we try to keep and then refocus on the next opponent. It's tough. I do physically go through the week after a loss, and I feel bad. I get sick. My muscle, I'm aching everywhere, and it's no joke. And so if you or if you bought into a thing like that, you want to win. You can't. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm obsessed with this game. People tell me my eyes change when I talk about the game, and I get patient. My passion goes through, and shows. They say my eyes just change. I look like a lunatic. I look crazy, and I don't feel it. But they say if I did a NFL game in local TV as a commentator, and there was a situation, and there was a big discussion, and I just jumped in and gave my 5 cents, and actually the moderator guy was there with the microphone, looked at me, and he said, "I'm getting scared. You look so determined and pumped up that I never saw that before. I never felt it. I just was very passionate about what I was saying. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit fear that drives me of losing what I really worked 30 years for. Um, it's 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 more that providing for the family, being good in what you're doing. I mean, I take a lot of pride in that. I just want to be good in what I'm doing. I don't want to be average, but that's just me. I think it's just a character trait I just developed. I just don't want to. I just don't want to hang around. I just want to be really good in what I'm doing. And I was lucky enough to do something I love. I'm not going to work every day. I go to my hobby, and I happen to get paid for it. And so I know about my situation. Maybe it's the realization of also of knowing that I'm a lucky guy. I'm really doing something I really like, and when I put all the energy in, and I'm good too. So if you realize that, you cherish it. For some people, it comes too fast. They don't cherish it. They're doing it for the money. For example, it sounds cliche again. I never did it for the money. And I guess that's I worked for free for a long, long time as a first division coach, as an assistant coach. I went to the US and coached as a volunteer at a college. I invested time, money, health into this without even getting anything in return, just because I love the game. And a lot of people don't do that nowadays. I mean, I see a lot of young guys, and the first thing they ask me is how much you pay. And I just turn around and I tell them, hey, you got a chance to be in one of the best coaching staffs, most experienced coaching staffs in Europe. You asking for pay? You should pay me. And then they look at me and he's arrogant. But I just think that's what I did. I never looked for the money. I looked for the best coaching staff around. And so I had Billy Brooks. I had Bob Griffin, one of the best coaches in the Northeast. I had some great coaches around me, but I chose them. I went there. It's not like they just hired me. I was a young pup. They didn't know who I am. They didn't want to pay me. So I did it sometimes for a bus ticket, especially in the 90s, up until 96, 90. I did it for 100 German marks or whatever it was at that time, and that was a bus ticket for a year.
Doing things for the money, anything in anything in life is rarely a good idea. But it's amazing to hear your passion for the game itself. Not many people find that. That makes you pretty lucky. I mean, you've said you're a lucky man, but to have found something you're so passionate about. I mean, when I walked in and we were drinking coffee before we started recording and talking about podcasts, and you said, I just listen to football podcasts. I mean, you just love this game.
Yes, I do. And I have always a great story. When I was the youngest head coach in the German Bundesliga, in the first division, in probably the best league in Europe, in Germany. I was the youngest guy, age 27, in 1996, and I failed. I went 1-5. I resigned mid-season of several reasons, and I was actually at the point where I wanted to stop coaching, and that was age 27. And then I got a phone call from a friend in the U.S. who said his neighbor took over the head coaching job at a college in Massachusetts. And if you want to go and coach and really be hands-on, go over there and just spend time with him. And I actually took the plane, went over, and I remember going to somebody I never met. And I was a young lad. I was 27 years old, young guy. I end up at New Haven bus station, which is outside of New Haven at the, I don't know, it was an ugly area, not very inviting. I'm sitting there I'm arrived at late at night. It's a Sunday, and I'm waiting for a coach that I have never met in my life. I talked to on the phone once, and I'm waiting, and I had to wait 5 hours on the bus station, and it starts to clear out. There's nobody, no buses going. I'm sitting in there. They left it open. Luckily, there wasn't like a thing where you close. I'm sitting on my baggage, and I'm sitting there at night at New Haven, waiting for a guy, and it never came to my mind that this is dangerous. What you doing? I mean, I saw cars going by. You talking about an area in this industrial area where the bus station is? There is nothing. If there was somebody wants to rob me, I got all my money on me because I'm a tourist. I'm just going to learn. And later on, it's just crazy what I did. And I had no help. I just I actually took the bus from JFK to New Haven. I had no idea where the bus is. I just fiddled my way through, sitting there. And then 5 hours later, there's a big guy coming in, Jim Foster. And he was at Cape somewhere, and he said that the traffic is crazy coming back from the beaches, and I'm sorry, you had to wait 5 hours. So I actually, after long trip, I fought a bed at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning at his basement. He gave me a bed there, and and he had a nice family. His wife was there too, and his son. And I really think that shows you what I was willing to do at that time. I mean, I had no second thoughts. I just jumped there. Sitting at that bus station in New Haven is just, up until today, it's just almost like a trauma. I mean, at that time not, because I was actually scribbling down plays and was highly excited and motivated to get it going. But if you think back, that's crazy what I did. And then, the rest is history. I spent 3 years there and at that college, and it was the best time in my life. It was my apprenticeship. I actually think those 3 years taught me the game. And I still do stuff I learned and we practice there. I still use a lot of stuff now, and I'm still winning.
What is it about the coaching that fires you up so much, though? I mean, is it working with the players? Is it working with the staff? Is it being... I have to say, when I walk in here, we're in this magnificent stadium. The appealing thing to me is the idea of being part of a big organisation, coming in every day and everyone's pulling in the same direction. That, as an outsider, looks very appealing. But what is it that about the coaching that so interested you and made you sit in a bus stop for 5 hours on the other side of the world?
I think it is being part of a team, being part of a group that pulls in one direction. I think that's something when you're from Berlin and you're a young lad on the street, and I think I was always looking for somewhere where I can fit in. I think that's kind of what I'm looking for, and I have that family, that substitute for a functioning family. I mean, it is the boys on the street, it's your friends. And then you go into a club. I mean, we have a lot of kids. Over the years, I had a lot of team members, kids that had no father. And it's a cliche again, but it is so true. I mean, there's a substitute. The Raiders play a major role for some kids' life. I mean, they go to practice, and it is substitute for family. It is substitute for gaining respect, appreciation for who they are. This is what you gain. And I think that was kind of appealing to me too as a young guy, because I was exactly in their shoes when I was a young guy. The self-confident guy that won a lot of trophies that you see sitting here, that wasn't me. That just happened in 30 years. And I think that was very appealing to me, that and also leading man, being like the way I am. I think I like the fact that I can have people, direct people, and do something. I don't know, that's something I never, early in my career, there were no big stadiums. I was on soccer fields, 10 people watching the game. But for me, it was my Super Bowl. And I remember, I don't know where that comes from. I was hyped up as a coach. I was hyped up, and I got out there, and it was the biggest and most important game of my life. And it was really... People saw me, and I remember those looks of my players. Sometimes they're looking at me like, what's wrong with him? I mean, this is, but then they understood that it's about winning. It's about, going in there with your friends and accomplishing something great. And to beat somebody in football, you have to do it physically, mentally. It's not just a stupid game. You got to be tactical on top. And you got to kind of foresee what he does on the other side. I like that aspect a lot of the chess match going on between the two coaches. And there's games. I had great games where actually a friend was on the other side, being the head coach over there, where we look at each other's eyes in special situations, and we're smiling. And we know it is going on now. It's on. Who's the smarter guy? I had that. I had guys looking over, and I see his smile, and I know him for 20 years, and it's a championship game, big game, and we're smiling in the crunch time because we knew it is us now.
Yeah.
Who it's like two buddies in the Buddelkasten in school, and I love this part of it. It's just awesome.
But how do you switch off? Because I mean, the intensity with which you're speaking now. I mean, it's great just sitting here listening and kind of absorbing that passion, but you can't be there all the time. How do you recommend to your players or to people that are listening to this who have a really big goal? How do you switch off, and how do you find that balance?
Tough. It's tough.
This is not an insult, but I don't get the impression you're very good at switching off.
No, I'm not. I will pay a price for it. Eventually, I will not survive it. But I got 3 kids now, and I got a great family, and I got a great wife, and she loves football, and she does understand my passion for what I'm doing, and the kids really pull me down. So lately, I mean, they're very young. My oldest is 9, and so in the last 9 years, I went home, and there was somebody that was away from football important to me. So I can tell you in 9 years now, I found a way to switch off and let football be football. But the other 20 plus years I was doing it, that was my life. And that's very unhealthy. You have to be much more balanced in your life. And I'm a guy, I admit it. I do read a lot of books outside of football too, just to keep up with things and just out of interest. But I really don't. People people would yell after me, "Hey, get a life." I mean, this is kind of what they would do if they just see me being such a blockhead about football. But it also is part of being good. If you want to be good, you got to be knowledgeable about what you're doing, and you got to be an expert in your field. And I always have the feeling of not being up to par. I mean, this is just me. So I just try to learn and learn and learn and learn and just know what's going on. And the game evolves every year. It's just the bad part is it's a game that's not steady. It moves. It evolves. It gets more. Every year you have a new trend, new things coming up. And if you're actively coaching, you know some knucklehead will see something in the NFL. You're going to see it next year in your league. It's just people are like this. They're all reading the same book. They all buy the same book at Amazon, and you can see the same stuff on the field. And this is something that happens in our league, in football in general in Europe. Yeah? People see some, and they just take plays they see in the NFL, and they throw it at you. And if you kind of have to be on top of your thing, we're not doing that. We just do what we're doing. We're just more rooted in the belief in what we're doing. We don't have to see a funky play and then always have to put it in, or we have to see a funky trend and then always buy into it and change everything you do and just do what it's there was a good soccer coach once said, Otto Rehhagel, he said, who's modern is the guy who wins.
Absolutely.
And that's so true. And I just believe in exactly that. So, I don't listen to Coach Shu. How about throwing it more? Where's the trick plays? I heard all of it. Look at the scoreboard. We're winning, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, they say the true definition of intelligence is realizing how little you actually know. And at the sports I've pursued, the more I learn about them, I just feel less and less knowledgeable in a way, and it's. I think that's maybe indicative of people thinking they know a lot, all the trick plays and everything. And what's so admirable here is that clearly you know the game inside out, but you're still a student and you've just created this culture. And it's really impressive just to hear about.
Yeah, football is, like I said before, is such a unique sport. American football is such a unique sport because there were so many books written about it that it is impossible for you to know everything. There is trends, there is specific offensive philosophies that are followed and they're defended in the internet, and people, there's so many. It's almost like cults. There's the cult that likes to run it. There's the cult that likes to pass it this way. There's disciples for this coach, they follow him, and he's the guru, and it's really a sport, and I can't follow all that. I can't. So you really, as a coach, you're forced to create your own philosophy, learn the things, and do the things you trust and believe in, and then go with it. You're never gonna know everything. I mean, I know coaches. I had coaches. They forgot more than I ever learned. I mean, there were older guys that are just the most. One of my friends was the most winningest high school head coach in Connecticut history. That guy, is just, he forgot more than I would ever in my life know, because he just been around so long. That's also actually, that's an aspect I like about the game, is that football is a coach. Coaching in football is like being a wine. The older you are, the more wiser, and I think, in my opinion, the better you are. I'm making a difference here between NFL. Those young CEOs in the NFL, those head coaches, McVay, those 32 years old, that's business. That's different. They're running a company. They're running, it's different. They have great, look at his defensive coordinator. That's a 70-plus legend in defense, Let's put it this way. He is not everybody 30 on his staff, He got the old chief in that runs it in behind him. So I think that's what I like. It's very appealing to me, is that the old, I just saw, it's interesting. When I was a young lad, a young coach, those older head coaches, those 60, 70-year-old guys, they're almost like dons. I went to the coaches convention, and they were sitting there was a seat, there was like a corner seating area, and there's all those old guys. I remember I knew one guy, so he introduced me to all those legends. We talk about legends.
Yeah.
And I'm like the guy that kisses the ring. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was very appealing. I thought they're respected. We talk about young guys. They're fanboys. They go there to meet those air raid gurus. They're really, and I think that's very unique for the sport, because, it takes you a lifetime to understand the game. It is not soccer. You can't go and take a course with the DFB, the German Football Federation, and then after a year you call yourself a coach. There's none like that. They try in Europe to certificate a football coach like a license, and I'm always laughing about it. You can be licensed and you can go and learn how to tackle do something like this as a course. You don't learn there's no license to be a football coach. You can't have on a sheet saying you're a football coach. You're not. A football coach is a guy that does it takes it in his grave, and then they may call him coach and respect him, and you have gained the trust. But I think the word coach is used anyways in our circles. Everybody calls himself coach. Come on, you got to earn that title. You can't just start coaching and then people add coach to your name everywhere. And I'm laughing about it. The other guy is just starting football, and then I see press releases in the internet, and then they call him coach whatever, and I'm thinking, no, I know him as Andy. He wasn't coach last year. Why is he coach now? Just because you gave him the responsibility to run a couple of people and try to make him win? No, let him work on it, and then he earns the title. That's why it's and it all comes back to the old guys, and you actually your whole life you work on your legacy, and you either hate it, you respect it, and I think the title coach is something you have to earn, and it's used very loose right now. Everybody is called coach, and that's just wrong, because a lot of guys spend a lot of money, time, and health to get there.
Well, you have got there. I think even you would have to admit that you have earned the title of coach. What are you going to do with it? What's the plan? I know it's $1 million question, and I asked you before we were recording, but where is football in Europe? Where are the Raiders? Where's this going for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very good question. It's a very hard question too, because the Raiders will be fine. We have a great management And I think what I really like about the SWARCO Raiders Tirol is that they are very visionary. They are trailblazers. That keeps me fresh too. They are open to new things. We just opened up a basketball team, and they are just raiding the league. I mean, we're doing it so good. Our first home game for basketball there were so many people that the opponent was so terrified because they used to play in front of 10 people. Now it's 5, 6, 700. And we are just taking something over and doing it right. And that's the Raiders organization. They're going to be fine. I mean, they will be all right. Football in general in Europe, I don't know. I mean, it's just I'm gonna ride the wave here as long as I can. I have a great setup. I have great players. I got a great team. I mean, our team is very special. I mean, I have about half a dozen doctors. I mean, there will be doctors in no time. There will be medicine guys. I mean, they may save my life in 10 years. I have great young men here that are really going to be in awesome jobs. I mean, they're going to be doing the surgery on the knees of the players in 10 years. They're going to be maybe the inventing stuff. I mean, I'm just very excited about the guys we have here in Innsbruck, and I hope I can instill some of my beliefs in it is hard work. I mean, you see, we just both can turn around and it says here, hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. It's also to tell them, you don't have to be the most talented guy, but you got to put the work in. I did. I paid my price, and that's a message that has to be delivered. That every kid, and not everybody's buying into it. Not everybody loves me, but I know I'm just always going to be straight to you. I shoot straight. I just tell you how it is, and I take grief, and I take people not liking what I'm saying. And like I said, I have players that you would ask them now. They may not have enjoyed the time with me because I was just bluntly telling them how it is. I mean, not giving them names and cussing them out. I just tell you when your expectations are too high for the productivity you have shown on the field, or when your leadership is not needed because it's not leadership, it is actually pulling the team down, I will always step in and tell you that it's phony. It's there's a lot of phoniness in the society nowadays and fakeness, and I just want to make sure that I never ever let that happen. So I'm a straight shooter, and I think I will leave that. I want to leave that. The wins, they're fine. I mean, for me they're almost like a byproduct. I mean, it sounds stupid, but it is like that. If you do your job right, and I always tell people that if you do your homework and you do the best job you can do in your field of work, you will be successful. There's no way you're not, unless you don't do your best job. You're not, and it includes to be working intelligently, working smartly, educate yourself in your field of expertise, whatever it is. And if you put all your efforts in there, you will be successful. I'm not saying you win championships, but I'm saying you're going to win more than you lose. And it may keep you the job, and it may keep you happy. And because you feel miserable when you lose, and you know what the worst feeling is? You lose and you know you didn't do your homework. That's the worst feeling, and that's you never want to get in that situation. And that's my motto too. Never get outworked. Never get outworked.
That is fantastic. I'm sitting here smiling, and I hope people listening to this are sitting and feeling inspired to pull in their running kit and go for a run or start that business they always wanted to start. But it's an incredible story to come from the background you came from. I'm sure it wasn't easy where you grew up in Berlin, and it could have gone the other way. And to have sat here and listened to you explain how it didn't, almost it seems through just sheer determination that it wouldn't go wrong. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What a way to end from Shuan. Never get outworked. Brilliant stuff. Thank you again to Shuan for his time, and to the Raiders for lending him to me for an hour. You can find out about the SWARCO Raiders by going to raiders.at. and you can follow Shuan on Facebook by searching for Coach Shuan. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.